What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Fantasy Files podcast, where we talk about our favorite fantasy series and topics. We are your co-hosts, Spencer and Gabe, and today we have another Creators Corner episode with Craig, the main host of the Legendarium Podcast. If you don't know, our Creators Corner episodes are where we sit back and have a beer with some of our favorite content creators for a fun, off-topic, anything goes conversation. Maybe we'll talk about fantasy and sci-fi, or maybe we'll talk about how irrelevant Justin Bieber has become. Who knows? We'll introduce Craig in just a second, but first take a moment to click those like and subscribe buttons. That's all I want for Christmas, guys. Just hit the subscribe buttons. And remember that every time you hit the like and subscribe buttons is another one of Gabe's fingernails that remain where they're supposed to be. And yes, he is still trying to dig his way out of my basement with a plastic spoon. So he needs all the fingernails he can get. We also have a Discord, a Twitter, and a second channel for movies and video games, all of which will be linked below in the description. Well, without further ado, let's introduce our guest here and start off with some content creation talk. So Craig, I mentioned before, if people are watching our podcast, they very likely know like what the Legendarium is and what you guys do, but we get a lot of people who are new to BookTube, new to podcasts. Do you want to talk about like who you are and what kind of content you make, where people can follow you?
Yeah. There's a good chance that people have heard of who we are and even tried an episode before they decided, yeah, that sucks, I'm out of here. So my name is Craig. I've been hosting the Legendarium podcast for coming up on 9 years now. Wow. We started as it was me and Ryan, the other main host on the show, I guess you'd call him. He and I started about 9 years ago planning out this show, and it started as a lowly podcast in his attic. And then it went to my basement. Now we've got this kind of little studio out in my backyard that we use. But since then, it's become, we've got the YouTube channel thing going. We've got our own Discord is quite vibrant and really, really fun place to be. So it's expanded quite a bit from where we started, and who knows where it will end up. But we just finished up actually doing the Sanderson's Dragonsteel convention here in Utah. So that was just this week, and we had our very own little booth because we're so cute like that. We had our little booth.
That's
and
awesome.
I did a panel and talked to hundreds and hundreds of people that came through Dragonsteel. It was great.
Oh man.
Awesome.
What was the what kind of panel was it? Like was
it the kind that I had no business being on? No, it happens that way sometimes. There's that whole thing about it's not what you know, it's who you know. Sometimes it's overblown, but sometimes it's really true, where the Dragonsteel folks asked me if I would do a panel, and I said, yes, absolutely, happy to. Yeah. And they said, will you do the panel called Previously on Roshar? Or no, sorry, not Roshar, Scadrial. Previously on Scadrial, to kind of prep people for the release of the Lost Metal. And I betaed the Lost Metal, which actually made it more difficult to do that panel because, first of all, I'm trying to remember what the heck happened in the 3 books previously. Yeah. And I didn't have time to do a reread. So I'm trying to remember what happened, and also trying to remember
not spoil.
Yeah, what happened in which book. And so anyway, it was this other guy, Jacob Call, and we did the panel. We'd never met before, but we had really good rapport. So it basically just turned into kind of a 45-minute comedy routine about Scadrial. Nobody learned anything, but hopefully everybody had a lot of fun.
Oh, that's awesome. That's great. Is there a way to watch this panel somewhere?
Oh, I have no idea. Go subscribe to Brandon's channel. Hey, let's hawk the other channels, right? Yeah. I have no idea if they're going to put it on. I didn't see any cameras though, so I kind of doubt it.
Oh, okay. Man, that's
believe
awesome.
me, I'm looking out in the crowd that, there's a couple hundred people in the crowd, and it became really clear really quickly that at minimum half of them could have taken my place on the panel and been more informative. And so if anybody listening or watching is like, oh man, I wish I could see that panel. Nah, you're good. It's all good. It's fine.
Yeah, that's funny. Especially with those books, there's so much that happens, but it's so like interconnected in certain ways where it's like it's hard to remember how everything kind of clicks together in especially in, I mean, well, with all the Mistborn books, but like Era 2 specifically, like Murphy Napier did she did like a recapping books 1 through 3 to prepare people for the Lost Metal. And I was like, oh, I'll just watch this and then I'll go on to the Lost Metal. I'll know what's going on. And man, I watched that video and I'm like, I do not remember any of this. I'm like, I have no idea like who half these characters are. And so I was like, okay, I got to do a reread. So right now I'm on Alloy of Law. Gabe will be starting it Monday, I think. And
got some ground to cover.
Yeah. And then by Saturday we'll be finished with the Lost Metal. We do audiobooks and we listen at like a very fast pace because we both work at jobs that allow us to like listen all day. And so yeah, we fly through these books and I'm so excited for Gabe to read Era 2. I'm so excited. What did you think of Lost Metal?
Me?
Yeah.
It's a great question. I am about 100 pages in now.
Okay.
So, and it's, I know that there have been a lot of changes since I did the beta. So what I'm looking for mostly is, I want to get to the sections that I know I had a lot to say about.
Yeah.
Be like, hey, did any of my changes make it?
You know? Nice.
Anyway, and I know I'm not the only one who made certain comments. But anyway, it's a giant team effort, but it's still fun to see. So I've done betas now for Brandon and for Brent Weeks.
I know.
And this Brandon book, The Lost Metal, is the first one that I've done that's actually come out. So so it's a little bit different experience for me to read the book that I've kind of already read.
Yeah.
Right.
But one of the things I have to be careful about is that I'm not supposed to tell you what those changes are, right? And so anyway, so yeah, it's kind of some private fun for me.
There you go.
So you can't comment on what was different in the beta read?
As far as I remember, I could be wrong on that. But I'm going to play it safe and not get kicked off Brandon's beta team.
Yeah,
for sure. Yeah, man, I cannot explain how jealous I was that you got to beta read Night Angel Nemesis. Like, oh my god, dude. I wanted to beta read it so bad. I like sent him an email and I'm like, I am like the biggest Night Angel fan. Like, please let me beta read. And they're like, they got back to me. They're like, we literally like just picked the last person before.
It's
like, no,
it happens that way. And, and once again, it was who I know because we had gotten to know Brent over the years and his admin and all that stuff. So it kind of just worked out that way.
Yeah. But, what's crazy is he didn't he pretty much announce Night Angel Nemesis on your guys' channel? Because that was the first time I had heard of it. You were doing like a little interview with him.
Yeah.
And out of nowhere, he was like, by the way, there's going to be another Night Angel book. And I was,
Yeah, we had a good time with that. I wish we had known he was going to do that because I might have made a bigger deal out of it.
Yeah.
But as it was like, yeah, well, we'll put the episode out to the world and see what they do with it.
See what happens.
No, Brent has been a great friend to us over the years now.
Yeah, he's awesome. Yeah, I remember as soon as I saw that video of your guys', we have like a podcast chat because we have another co-host that joins us sometimes. And I was just like in all caps, like, watch this right now. Like, I was so excited.
Skip the boring stuff at the beginning.
Yeah, I cannot wait for that book. I think that's coming in April of next year, right? Or maybe
I'm not entirely sure, but I can tell you that without having made it all the way through Brandon's book yet, The Lost Metal, I can tell you that the changes that Brent made were bigger. Like his beta was a lot more like slice and dice and like really get after some of the bigger stuff that Brandon probably gets through in like alphas.
Yeah. Okay.
So anyway, so
Nice.
yeah, it was really very interesting experience.
That's awesome. Well, I do want to talk about, content creation and stuff here. When I think of fantasy and or book podcast, the first thing that comes to mind is the Legendarium. I've been watching you guys for a while now. It's really the first place that I saw this kind of discussion where other nerds are like, "Oh, I also like fantasy," and just kind of coming together and having
Right.
really deep conversations about these books that that I was reading in high school, and there was no one to talk to about it because usually there's only a couple kids at school that read the same kind of material. And you talked about this at Legendarium Con a bit, but do you want to talk about what it was like to start the Legendarium from the beginning? You mentioned you started in an attic and went to a basement. Can you talk about any like struggles you faced or any like joys you experienced along the way?
Yeah, I will say, I get this question a lot. What was it like at the beginning?
Mhm.
And people looking to start their own podcasts or YouTube channels or what have you. And I get that question a lot. What was it like at the beginning? What can I expect? And it was a little different for us than it would be for somebody today, because like you were kind of alluding to, we were the only game in town for a while.
Yeah.
Not forever. There are 100 really, really good shows out there that I could name, but yours among them, of course. But at the time, we were the only ones that we knew of who were doing something like that.
Yeah.
The friends kind of sitting around the coffee table chatting about fantasy and sci-fi. There were some other sci-fi fantasy shows, but yeah, we're the only ones with that format. And anyway, I'm getting a little off track, but what was it like at the beginning? It was really, really slow going.
Okay.
We're pretty good, I hope, at talking into microphones and having discussions, but we're not very good at self-promotion.
Yeah.
And so it took about 2 years before anybody actually started listening to the show.
Oh.
It took a long time. We had a bunch of episodes. I'd say we got to, we probably got 80 or 100 episodes in before we started to actually see some traction. And it wasn't until we started reading Brandon
Oh yeah.
that I want to say this would have been back in 2015, 2016, something like that. When we started in on Brandon's stuff, and it started getting hits on Reddit, on those the Brandon subreddits. That's when we finally got some traction. Anyway, so I guess point being, people ask, what was it like at the beginning? What can I do? Get better at self-promotion than I was, but also be prepared to just be really, really patient.
Yeah.
It's not something that's going to happen overnight. And honestly, like I've watched as other shows kind of used our format and did it, arguably better, sometimes maybe not as good. But I've watched a lot of shows get bigger than us. And that's totally fine. We're not out to be the biggest kids on the block, but it is really interesting to see kind of the difference between a general show, general interest sci-fi fantasy show like us, where we'll cover all sorts of topics, versus something that really, week in, week out dives into a Song of Ice and Fire or the Cosmere or whatever, where that, you can grow really, really quickly with a specialization like that. And it's honestly a lot of fun to watch them explode, watch those other shows go crazy. I enjoy it.
Yeah.
I have no idea if I answered your question. But
No, you did.
Totally
Yeah.
did.
Okay, cool. Oh, whew, thank you.
Yeah, I think for us, it's kind of like, whether of course, we'd love to get big and have this become like a huge thing. But at the same time, like mostly what this is for us is like an opportunity for Gabe and I to like kind of talk about books we read. Cause we started, he was working, I had a small construction company and he was working with me, and we would listen to audiobooks all day. And then we'd talk to each other at the end of the day for a while about them. And I was
Might as well record it.
Yeah,
I'm
exactly.
like, yeah, why don't we just start doing this on Zoom or something? And then especially I moved to a different state recently, well, 6 months ago. And so it's been even more important to like have this time to be able to, have that time to like kind of hang out and talk about books or talk about movies or whatever. And so that's what I really love about having this podcast. And then even beyond that, the community that I've gotten to like get to know over the past, I think it's been like a year and a half now. Man, that like I've met people that I never thought I would be able to meet, like having authors on the show, other content creators like yourself, and just being able to have like these conversations is like, man, I never would have thought that it would be like that when we first started.
Yeah, it's been interesting that way for me as well. Like I being able to beta on Brandon's team didn't come necessarily directly because of the show, but indirectly because of the show, because I had gotten to know this person and they introduced me to that person, and that person was on the beta team, and and so that's another thing that I would kind of point out. It's certainly been true for me, and I bet it's true for a lot of content creators out there, is that the primary product isn't necessarily what's going to be the biggest deal for you.
Yeah.
The Legendarium, I love it. I will always love it, even when it dies a fiery death, at some point because one of us says something inadvertently racist or whatever, and we get canceled. Like, okay, so one day it'll die, but I'll always love it. But what I'll love isn't that, we had X thousand number of people tuning in each week or whatever. What I'll love is that the show opened up doors for me that I never expected. So by starting a podcast, I had to learn how to be more effective in front of a microphone. And I had to learn how to build a web page. I had to learn how, social media advertising works. I still suck at that, but, but I had to learn a little bit about it.
Right.
And so it was, I want to say it was about a year and a half into the show, or maybe a year into the show, like, so way back in 2014-ish, when I was working at a bank, and I was, which I actually don't want to knock. It's a great job if you can get it. It wasn't for me. I was pretty miserable, but one of my customers was a giant nerd. She comes in wearing like Batman tights and, like I can't remember what the t-shirt was, but it was some nerdy t-shirt. And I was like, hey, you and I should be friends. You should come on my podcast. And she was like, okay. And she ended up getting me a job in marketing, way different than my bank job, right? And it was much more to my taste. And so that was a door that was opened up because of the podcast. And then at that job, they had me start doing YouTube stuff. I'd never operated a camera before in any serious way. And now suddenly I have to run a YouTube channel.
Yep.
Wow.
And so like those doors getting opened up, where like I was able to quit that job and full-time do kind of freelance podcasting and video work and blog writing and all that stuff. Those doors got opened up kind of in a secondary way because of the podcast. And so if you are going to start your own thing, it might make you rich and famous. And if it does, congratulations. But at the very least, it's going to teach you a whole bunch of skills that will come in handy for you as you go.
For sure.
Yeah, it's been wild to learn like video editing specifically. Like when we first started this, I was using like the YouTube for the first couple episodes. I was like, okay, I just need to cut out, and I didn't even cut out any of the middle stuff. I just cut out like, the 10 seconds that is usually quiet from when I hit record, and cut out a little bit at the end, and that was it.
Yeah, it was bad.
It was bad. Really bad. And then I had like some sort of free video editor. I was like, I'll just use this to learn how to edit. And it did help me learn how to edit and how to put like pictures up on the screen and stuff like that. But man, it was a terrible, terrible video editor. And so then kind of moving from that onto like Adobe Premiere, and going deep into like YouTube rabbit holes on all the cool stuff that you can do with Premiere, and just kind of the whole experience of figuring that out. I'm like, man, I never would have even thought to learn this if we hadn't started the podcast. And you mentioned getting more and more comfortable in front of a microphone. And I know for Gabe and I, like, that's something that we have seen kind of snowball, to where, at first, like if I went back and watched our first like few episodes, like we were probably pretty awkward. And it's
I
not
was
that we're
just
not.
like super nervous, dude.
Yeah,
Like it took
me
me
too.
like 6 months of doing it to not be like anxious while I'm doing
Yeah,
this.
Yeah.
But
yeah,
but then you think about it, I'm like, well, I'm just talking to Spencer. Like, there's not really a
yeah.
reason that it needs to be anxious, and so realizing that I think helps a lot.
Yeah.
Uh,
And even with our first couple of guests, we were both kind of like, oh man, we're gonna
yeah,
have somebody else on here and they're gonna expect us to ask all these professional questions and everything. And then after a while, it was like the people that come on, like even if we've never like actually interacted with them before, it's like we're all here to talk about fantasy or sci-fi or video games or whatever. And I feel like, as trite as that may sound, like it kind of connects us all in a weird way where we're all here for the same reason. We just want to enjoy nerdy stuff. And so I
yep,
feel like that makes having a guest on so much easier when you know that they're excited to be there and they're excited to talk about the same thing that
Yeah.
you're excited to talk about.
No, absolutely. Absolutely.
You kind of talked about this a little bit. You mentioned that marketing was hard at the beginning. How did that grow as far as like when the Legendarium finally took off around, whatever it was, like 2 years in or whatever?
Yeah.
What was the catalyst for that? Was it the marketing, or was it kind of just like a snowball effect of one person listening, then 3, then 6, then
or like the Brandon Sanderson thing when you started doing that.
Yeah, it was. So there were a few things that happened. I remember doing some guest posts on worldswithoutend.com. As far as I know, he's still operating. But at the time, he was making a huge push, reached out, wanted me to do some guest posting on there. So I did. And it's kind of like that whole website is kind of like a book club / reading challenge website. That's kind of their big thing. And so that was when we did the Year of Sanderson. He was like, hey, what could you guys do to, integrate with our website and what we're doing? And so I was like, well, I guess, so I came up with this reading challenge where it's like, we're going to read X number of Sanderson books throughout the year. So anyway, that was what started the Year of Sanderson. But if I had only done that website, yeah, we would have picked up a few extra listeners, but nothing big. It was quite simply Reddit. Reddit was huge for us. And I haven't used Reddit now in a little while. It's a little clunky and it's a little toxic potentially.
Yeah.
Luckily our subreddit was never that way, but still, anyway, when we were doing the Year of Sanderson, I started promoting that on Reddit, on the Sanderson subreddits. And people just kind of picked it up and ran with it there. So I would post the episodes and there would be some good discussion about it on there. And eventually one of the people on the Sanderson subreddits, Joffwoo, made our subreddit for us. He was like, hey, cool. You guys need to have your own thing. And so I was like, great, go forth.
Yeah.
do as you will. And apparently it's really easy. He just created a subreddit and we grew it for a couple of years. Anyway, so that was what kind of got us started was very simply Reddit.
Wow.
And now we do the Discord thing because I think it's a little easier to have some like the moderation is possible on Reddit, but things can snowball out of control really quickly on Reddit. Whereas on Discord, I think you have a little bit more direct control. And can do more live moderation than is easy to do on Reddit. I don't do much on Discord, but again, it was a fan generated thing. Somebody said, Kip Tan comes, and one of our longtime listeners, he's like, you need a what's it called? Discord server.
Discord, yeah.
And so I said, all right, here's the keys to the kingdom.
Go for gold, yeah.
Yeah, have fun. And so it's all been kind of listener generated to a certain extent.
That's cool. Wow. That's really cool.
Yeah, awesome. I mean, obviously, I had to do that the very early stages of, swallowing my pride and asking people on Reddit to listen to our show. But once I did that, it's like you say, kind of find the right person to enjoy the show, and then that snowballed from there.
Nice,
awesome.
Yeah, I've had a kind of a hard time on Reddit because I was trying to do. I don't know if it's like, if Reddit is more moderated nowadays or if there's more rules or what, but there are so many subreddits where you like just can't post like self-promotion anything nowadays.
Which is
And
good, honestly. Speaking as a self-promoter, it's still a good thing. It's a good thing.
Yeah. Yeah, I could see how like it could get like out of control. But I would love to go on to like I don't know, like a fantasy just go on to like the R fantasy subreddit and see
Yeah.
people like, hey, we like talked about this thing for like 2 hours. If you want to check it out, feel free.
Right.
Because like every time there's like I think there's like three fandoms that I can post our stuff to. One is Dresden Files, the other is Night Angel, and then King's Dark Tidings. And those are really anytime we do an episode on those things, I can post it over to Reddit, but everything else, I'm just like, it just gets shut down every single time.
Well, there's a trick to it. And if any aspiring or current content creators are listening, there is a trick to self-promotion, especially in a place like Reddit. And that is that it's not like, especially now, like you say, there are a lot more rules in most subreddits around self-promotion. So it's not going on and saying, we made a show, please listen to our show. So to give you an illustration of what you could do instead, I did a video maybe a year ago, a little more than a year ago, and it was comparing the prose style of 5 different fantasy writers. So Sanderson, Rothfuss, Tolkien, Jemison, and Erickson, I think.
Yeah.
And I went for it. Before I ever made the video, I was like, I was doing spreadsheets and counting words, and the big thing in that video was separating Germanic versus Latinate words and seeing how authors do, like, different styles. Yeah, even just with their word choice that way.
Professor Craig.
Yeah, that's so I can't say in depth, but for a 10-minute YouTube video, it was fairly in depth.
Yeah.
So I go on Reddit, and instead of saying, hey, here's this video, check it out, what I did was I basically put most of what I said in the video on like into a Reddit post. And then said, hey, if you want to watch instead of reading it here, then here's a link to it, where you're giving the audience something else, something that isn't just, hey, roll the dice and see if you like my stuff.
Choice. Yeah, that's
right.
Yeah.
So if that makes sense, like you got to give them something other than pretty please.
Yeah.
Anyway, so yeah, if anybody's looking for like how to actually self-promote, I don't pretend to be an expert, but that is one way that has worked for me in the past.
Okay, cool. Yeah, that's very good to know. So you mentioned we were talking beforehand about you kind of building this this studio for the Legendarium over there. You mentioned that you found ants in one wall, hornets in another.
Oh, man.
What was it significantly easier once the old shell kind of came down and rebuilding?
What you're talking about is the building of the studio that I'm in right now. It's in my backyard. We moved into this house. There was an old wood shop that I thought I would convert, and then it turned out that wood shop was, to say it was infested would be putting it mildly. So I demolished the entire thing all the way down to the concrete pad.
Did you do that yourself, or did you like get like somebody with an excavator to come just destroy it? Or
there are some jobs that just aren't worth doing yourself. So if I can pay somebody a few $100, because it's not just like I can take a sledgehammer and knock down walls, that's fine, but hauling away the stuff, like it gets complicated. So that was one of the very few jobs that I did pay to have done. So yeah, I had a guy demolish it, but then no, my dad lives about 10 minutes away from me, and between the two of us, we're pretty knowledgeable about, obviously not as knowledgeable as you guys about construction, but knowledgeable enough to build a 1-room, 300 square foot structure in my backyard. So anyway, but no, it's been really awesome. I built this back in I want to say I finished it in 2018, like early 2018. And I was still working for that marketing company, making YouTube videos and whatnot. And I remember them saying, I said, hey, I'm coming into the office and filming. these YouTube videos that we're making, but I could do that just as easily at home. In fact, I could probably do it better.
Yeah.
Can I work from home 2 days a week? And they were like, I don't know. Work from home.
Yeah.
When you say work from home, you mean not work, right?
Yeah.
I was
Yeah.
like, oh gosh. So I remember inviting my boss at the time. I said, hey, come out for dinner. We'll have dinner. And then I took him out to the studio, and he goes, oh.
He's like, I see.
Yeah, you can work from home. And I was like, yeah, thank you.
That's
so
awesome.
so then a couple of years later, when the pandemic hit and everybody had to work from home, I
Yeah.
was kind of sitting pretty
For sure, you were ahead of
out
the
here.
curve there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, it's been really good. It's awesome if you are able to work alone and not get too distracted, which I do struggle with, honestly. But yeah, if you can carve yourself out a little space to make it just about your content creation, it's awesome.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
For sure.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's cool that you have your own like dedicated space that you can make look however you want. You can all your cool lights and the shelves you have and everything back there, and kind of tailor that to what you want to present. But also like even just doing this kind of podcast stuff here in my house, there is so many distractions, and like halfway through recording, my dog will bark, and I couldn't imagine like having kids and everything running around in a house where you're also trying to do it. So having your own like separate place to do that is super awesome.
Well, I did it the other way for 5 years.
Yeah.
And I also live right underneath the flight path of the local Air Force base.
Oh,
and so
you get jets all the
so
time.
we all have our distractions, and I have to
Yeah.
pause recordings, and I have clients. The Legendarium is not the only thing I do. And so I'll have clients come in, we'll make podcasts or videos or whatever, and I'll just have to hold up a hand, and we'll wait while a wing of 4 F-16s goes by, and then okay, carry
All right,
on.
we're good now.
Oh, that's awesome. And you guys are all, I mean, obviously, because your podcasts are all in the same room, but you guys are all like really local. I feel like that's super lucky that you have all these people that love the same thing in the same area that kind of congregate there.
Yeah, it's a stroke of luck, and it's kind of our secret sauce in a way. So it's lucky. Well, I don't know about how lucky it is, because Utah, now where I live in the Salt Lake area, a few minutes north of Salt Lake, and Utah has been kind of consistently found to be the nerdiest state in the union, as far as what media we consume and what we talk about and what people are Google searching and all that stuff. Like it's bananas. So like for anybody who's never been to Salt Lake City, think about your conception of what Salt Lake City is, and you're like, oh yeah, it's this little town in the desert, right? Like whatever, it's out there somewhere. We have a Comic-Con that pulls in 100,000 plus people every year, right? So and most of those are local, so even with the population we have, like we generate a ton of nerdishness around here.
That's
anyway
awesome.
So I guess my point with that just being like, there's a pool to choose from around here.
Yeah, that's great.
But yeah, we have been really lucky, because it was me and Ryan to start, and he had some buddies who were like, hey, I love Star Wars. You guys are doing a Star Wars episode? I want to come on for Star Wars. And then they have a good time and they want to stick around, and it's been that way now for close on a decade. Awesome. But I say it's kind of our secret sauce, because it is a difficult thing to do today, to get multiple people at the same time, adults with lives and hobbies and families and all that stuff, but to get people in the same room at the same time talking about the same subject is it is tough. And thank goodness we have some really dedicated, awesome panelists who are willing to do that, because it does, like, we also do lots of shows over Skype. If I'm doing an author interview or something like that, we do a lot of shows over, whatever we use. But there is something about having everybody in the same room, being able to actually read all the body language, and
for sure,
and tell all the jokes, and we've known each other for years now. So anyway, it's something that not a ton of shows have been able to replicate.
Yeah,
and
sure.
And I'm happy that we're able to do it.
Yeah. And not only that, but you guys, like, I mean, I don't know how long you've all known each other for, but you seem like such like genuinely good friends. And I love you know that you're good friends with somebody when you can roast the hell out of them for your intro every episode. I love your roast so much where you're introducing everybody and it's like, oh, the guy that nobody likes, and you know, those they're so brutal and so funny.
When I choose to get around to them, I do them less and less these days.
Yeah.
No, it's funny you mentioned that. I don't think I introduced it at the very beginning, but Todd, one of our panelists,
Yeah.
Todd thought for a while, he said for the first like year that I was on the show, he says, I thought maybe you didn't like me. I was like, oh no, not at all.
No, that's not it.
These are terms of endearment, Todd.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I remember getting the, I think I got the idea originally from, there are a lot of people that are going to get mad that I even say these two words together, but Fox News used to have a show, I believe me, I detest all forms of cable news, but
yeah,
they used to have a show called Red Eye that was on at like 3:00 Eastern time, AM.
Yeah.
Like it was, so they called it Red Eye for a reason. It was in the middle of the night. But it was hilarious, absolutely hilarious. And that was how their host would intro the show. He would roast his his guests, and I was like, oh, that's a really good idea. And then I saw it being done more recently than that. I saw it being done on there's a British comedy troupe called 8 out of 10 Cats. And they roast each other at the beginning of every episode. So I saw that, it's like, okay, let's do that.
We got to do that.
So yeah, that's where that came from. And eventually I started trying to tie in the books, so if I was doing a Mistborn book, I'd say, something about, spiking his eyes is the only way to shut him up, or something like that.
That's awesome.
That's so great. Yeah. I was thinking, like, man, that must be hard to come up with a new roast for every single person for every single episode. Because even, to kind of explain like what that whole intro was that you saw, I've kind of come up with this whole story that Gabe is stuck in my basement and I'm forcing him to create content for the channel.
Well, it's easy when the story is true. I mean, I can see what's going on the screen here. So
yes. I'm glad that you can see it. Nobody else does.
Yeah, that's why I have him use the virtual background.
That's right. If I turn this off, man, it would scare you guys.
Yeah.
If I were one of the X-Men, that would be my power. I see through green screens.
Yeah.
I can see the chains in the wall.
Yep.
Oh man, there was this thing going around on Twitter. I don't know if you guys saw this, but there's it said something like China has discovered the secret to invisibility, and it's this girl in an office with a green screen, and she's lifting it up and down, and it's the background is projected onto her, so of course it looks like she's going invisible. And I think that I have lost my faith in humanity by the amount of people who thought it was real. I was just like, how, do you guys not know what a green screen is? There's people in the comments talking like scientifically, well, if it like projected the light past her and dispersed it at this way, I'm like, it's a green screen, you idiot. Oh, dude, it was just the weirdest. I pop into the weirdest comment sections.
Well, you say that, and I get it, I get it. But also, I think of it something like that this way. Everybody, okay, sorry, let me back up and say,
okay,
we're nerds, right?
Yeah.
We love fantasy books and comic books and Marvel movies and whatever, like we're nerds. But everybody is a nerd about something.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Everybody's a nerd about something. Maybe it's basketball, or maybe it's cracking nuclear fusion, or whatever. It could be anything. My sister is a nerd for dance. Whatever.
Yep.
The fact that you know how green screens work means that you are a nerd about a very specific type of thing.
Yeah.
And not everybody does. Now, it's there are varying levels of excusability with this, right? But I guess I don't feel too bad about people not knowing everything about how green screens work because they're too busy actually earning a living with plumbing or something, where I just
Yeah,
sit
that's their nerd
sit at
thing,
a freaking desk and make content all day. Like, I'm not the dumb one, or no, they're not the dumb one, I'm the dumb one, right?
Yeah.
That's fair. That's fair.
Ask me to plumb something. Hard
That's
pass.
right.
Oh, that's true. Okay, so if you guys aren't interested in this question, just tell me to pass and we can totally pass it.
Pass.
But okay.
Right.
But I saw this topic come up on, it was either Twitter or Reddit, and I thought it was an interesting conversation. So if you guys want to dive into it, like, feel free. So my question is, do you guys think that libraries and used bookstores are bad for authors, or is there some way that they help the reading community in which, like, it also helps the authors? Do you guys have any thoughts about this?
That's who says they're bad for authors?
Well, so I saw people making the argument that a library, you're not paying for the book, so the author isn't getting any revenue from the library.
Okay, except that they are.
Are they?
The library had to buy a book
from the author, right?
Well, yeah, or from the publisher.
From the publisher,
yeah. Yeah, so
right.
they'll order a dozen copies for their library system in that county or whatever.
Well,
sorry, go on.
So okay, so I guess I wasn't aware that libraries bought a significant amount of copies from a publisher, because I mean, my experience with libraries is just going into like the local town library or whatever. They have like one copy of like the Dresden Files book I want. And I'm just thinking, like, they buy that one copy, but then 10 people or more, probably hundreds of people are checking out that one book instead of hundreds of people buying that book from the author. That and I'm not saying that I fall one way or the other on this. I'm just that's the argument I saw.
Watch me fall one way.
Okay,
let's go.
That's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. Okay. So let's actually game theory this out a little bit.
All right.
So the library let's say you have one library that buys one copy of the book, and 100 people check out that book. Okay. All right. So now we have 99 people who have read the book without, whatever, mathematically, 99 people have read it without buying it. In the short term, it's easy to say, well, hang on a second, that's 99 people who could have bought the book and given that the author the revenue. Those 99 people aren't going to buy that book. They're trying it because they can do it for no charge at the library, right? Okay, so now you have 100 people who are reading a book that, maybe they heard about it, maybe they're just perusing the shelves, maybe there's a recommendation from a friend, and 100 people try this book. And let's say 20 of those like it enough to tell their friends, hey, there's this book that I just tried and it was really, really good. Now, they tell all their friends about that. How many of their friends actually go to the library? Well, we know the numbers on that, and the answer is freaking zero.
Yeah.
Like, none of them use the
order
library.
it from Amazon, if anything.
Exactly. And so somebody's like, well, I've got my Kindle Unlimited thing, or hey, whatever, it's $6 on Kindle, I'll just give it a shot.
Yeah.
Or they, I have 8 Audible credits burning a hole in my pocket. Yeah, I'll give it a shot, whatever. And so, right. And then you have that snowball effect that you were talking about earlier.
Right.
This person tells that person, and it's the Wayne's World thing, right? And they tell 2 people, and they tell 2 people, and so on and so on. So, no, I reject the idea that libraries or used bookstores are bad for authors. There's, like,
that's fair. Yeah.
I don't want people to steal books. Like, if I'm an author, I don't want them to steal my book. But if there's a legit way for them to get a hold of it and read it and enjoy it and tell people about it, absolutely. Go for it.
Marketing.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's fair. And that's kind of what I was alluding to at the beginning with the you know, it's good for the reading community, which is good for the author, because like you said, they kind of go out and they either post reviews or they tell all their friends
Yeah,
and so on and so forth. So do you think the used bookstore would be the same idea then?
absolutely. Except
Yeah.
better. Yeah.
Except better.
Except better, because then you're supporting a local business, and
Oh yeah.
but it's the same concept. And in fact, y- depending on the bookstore, you're more likely to get a used bookstore owner who is able to recommend sci-fi fantasy stuff
Yeah.
than your local librarian, right?
Yeah.
Right.
You walk into your county library, your city library, and they're going to be like, they're going to not always, okay? So, you know, hold
Yeah.
the emails, everybody, but often you'll go in someplace and they'll turn up their nose and be like, well, if you're looking for speculative fiction, I can direct you toward, you know, this literary corner
Yeah.
over here where there are ghosts involved. You like ghosts, right? You know, but you go to a used bookstore and you say something like, "Hey, I love Sanderson books. What do you got?" You know, and then they're
Yeah.
going to be like, "Oh yeah, let me
Follow
give you
me.
these 6 authors that you might enjoy." Right? So no, I think used bookstores are even better.
Yeah. Okay. I'd also be interested to kind of learn more about like some of these subscription services. Like
Mm.
we just started using Scribd. We're just kind of trying it out, and I'd be interested to know like how much revenue authors actually get from apps like that, where you're paying monthly and you have access to
Right.
all of these audiobooks. Um,
I'm
but
sure it's pennies,
I know,
but
I know.
again, you know, it's until something like that becomes as big as Spotify, I'm not worried about it.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. I don't want to say like I feel bad for the self-published community or anything, but we've gotten to know a lot of like self-published authors over the past
Hmm.
year and a half. And man, sometimes like I'll look at a series and be like, dude, that series is selling like crazy. This author is getting huge. And then when you learn what they actually make from Amazon, especially, it's just like, oh my
Yeah.
God, like you made your money back. Like you literally made your money back for like writing the book. It's
Right.
wild.
And it's, you know, it's hard to it would be really nice if someone could just sit in their basement, write a great book, and, you know, make years worth of living off of that, right?
Yeah.
That would be great in a perfect world, you know, but it's not. And I think it's actually, to bring up Spotify again, it kind of is paralleled a little bit by the music community, where
Yeah.
Spotify did not like ruin artists' income or anything. It's been a thing for decades that
Mm.
the label makes a lot of money off of record sales,
Yeah.
or, you know, in this case, downloads or whatever. Yeah, Spotify is making a lot of money off of all these downloads, and the artists are making a very little. But the artist understands that they need to go on tour. They need
Yeah.
to, you know, do their shows. They need to do live shows and excite the audience and create their product
Yep.
that people are going to want to come to see because
Right.
of their album, right? And so
Right.
then you look at somebody like, well, I mean, we've been talking about Brandon Sanderson quite a bit. His genius, similar to George Lucas back in the 70s and 80s, Brandon Sanderson's genius isn't necessarily the product that he came up with, which is really good. Obviously, you know, the Star Wars trilogy was great, and
Yeah.
so is the Cosmere. Like, this isn't a dig on that,
Right.
to say that his true genius is in marketing, merchandising, touring, you know, the things that create, or like the
Yeah.
leather bound books, where he creates
Yeah.
this massive fan base, and then said, you know, like his leather bound books would be the kind of the equivalent of his live tour for
Yeah.
some musical
Yeah.
artist, right?
Yeah.
Where it's like, hey, if you like what I do, shell out $100 freaking for this book that you already own, but now it looks pretty.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, and obviously it's more complicated than that, but I think the point kind of remains the same.
Yeah.
And so it's always been the case that the artistically inclined would have a tough time getting rich off of their artistry.
Right.
Some do, most don't.
Yeah.
But you can find a way to make a living kind of like with other methods
Right.
around it, right? Does that make sense?
Yes.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Definitely.
And like you said, the genius of Sanderson is creating this rabid fandom, like just this fandom that loves all of his stuff. And then on top of that, he does YouTube videos and podcasts, and he's very transparent with his audience, and he sends like weekly updates pretty much. And it's I don't think I've ever seen another author go to the lengths that he has to keep his audience informed as to what's going on. And then you have just like crazy surprises like his 4 secret novels thing, and it's just like,
Was
dude,
that the big Kickstarter thing that he did?
Yeah.
Made a bunch of money.
Yeah.
A bunch of 42 million.
Yeah.
Whatever.
No, that's a bunch.
Yeah. I'm looking forward to those. Oh,
you should.
Have you read any of them?
Yeah. I won't reveal anything other than this to say
Sure.
that now that the Lost Metal is out, I've been really, really looking forward to the 1-2 punch to the Sanderson community, where as far as like Cosmere stuff and like the lore that you get to dig into, the Lost Metal, people are going to lose their minds over the Lost Metal. And then just when they're starting to recover, the secret projects are going to hit and just beat the crap out of them. People are going to absolutely go ape over this stuff.
Wow.
Yeah, it's going to be awesome.
Oh, wow.
I can't wait.
That's awesome. Do I need to read Stormlight? Do I need to make that a priority?
Oh, yeah.
To enjoy?
Yeah. It is. Okay. Luckily, I know of a podcast that did a read along with Stormlight that'll help you get through it and have a great time with it.
Oh, really?
It's called the Legendarium Podcast.
That's awesome. Yeah, I'm also kind of worried. Like, will I still enjoy like the big moments of the Lost Metal without having read Stormlight? Because I've heard people say there's connections.
Oh, there's a ton of connections. It's still a good book without all of those little tertiary connections, Cosmere stuff. But you'll have more fun with it otherwise. But still, at this point, just read what you've got in front of you, get caught up. Doesn't matter what order. I think people put a little too much stock in the order theory in the Cosmere. Okay. I say just go for it, read it, and then just know that you're probably going to have to read every single one of them at least a second time. To really get into it.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I have got to use the bathroom real quick. When I get back, Gabe, do you want to pick the next topic?
Yeah, sure.
Video games, movies, whatever.
Yep. You got some football going on or something?
Oh, no, way better than that. I've got the ESL StarCraft 2 tournament is wrapping up right now.
Cool.
It's the grand finals.
Nice.
I'm a massive StarCraft fan.
Man, I've never played. That's Blizzard, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I've always wanted to. I play a ton of Overwatch, and that's always taunting me when I'm at the Blizzard homepage to try it out.
Yeah. Overwatch is fun. I didn't ever get like super into it, but I did buy it and try it.
Yeah, have you played 2? They just released.
No, I haven't.
Yeah, it's fun. They made a lot of tweaks to the characters that I really thought was pretty ingenious. And it's good fun.
Yeah, I've been playing StarCraft since it came out in 1998, so since 1998.
Nice. That was the year after I was born, man.
Oh, jeez. Thanks for that.
I'm a youngin. Yeah, no, that's cool though, man. Is it kind of like, and forgive me for even asking this, but is it kind of like World of Warcraft because I've never played it.
It's a real-time strategy.
Okay.
So it would be more like Warcraft 3.
Oh, okay.
That it like World of Warcraft based a lot of its lore on Warcraft
Stuff
3.
Off of. Okay. Cool.
But it's a very different type of game.
Yeah.
So no, this is. You ever play any MOBAs?
Yes. Yes.
So MOBAs are like the the shitty stepchild of RTSs.
Oh, okay,
Um,
like League of Legends is a MOBA, right? Okay.
Yeah, it's I am
'Cause
struggling
I know
to
that there's like
remember.
MOBA too, like there's the actual MOBA game
Right.
that's similar to League of Legends.
I think it was League of Legends. Don't put this in the show because you'll get lots of angry emails. But I think it was League of Legends it was one of them, kind of like that was based on a Warcraft 3 custom game mod.
Oh, wow.
And so it was built in Warcraft 3, unless I'm mistaken, and then it kind of, it took on a life of its own and
For
became
sure,
a different thing.
Yeah.
But no, so yeah, it's StarCraft 2 is pretty widely acknowledged to be the most difficult pro
RTS.
video game out there
Yeah.
because it's 1v1. You have no team to hide behind or anything, and you have to be faster than fast to.
Holy smokes, dude.
Like the fastest guys in the world are doing like 600, 700 actions a minute on average.
That's crazy.
Like,
I'm gonna have to.
They'll spike at like 1200.
I'm gonna have to check that out, dude. That's crazy.
Anyway, yeah, the grand finals are going on right now. Oh boy. Okay. All right. We got another result. Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. I wish I was like an esports person. I feel like when I was much younger, that's something that would have been like so amazing to like be able to sit down on like a Saturday and watch like Overwatch or something. But nowadays I'm so like deeply entrenched in like, I just like story, video games. I don't do too many competitive things, although I downloaded the new Call of Duty, but yeah, for the most part, I'm just like story-based games. But
yeah,
dude, I couldn't imagine like back when Halo 2 and 3 were really big. I was online every day playing those. I would have loved to have esports as big as they are now.
Well, it's nice. I kind of made light of MOBAs before, but with MOBAs as well as RTS like StarCraft, it's nice to have a game that you can kind of like, hey, I'm gonna watch this match and it'll last an hour or less, and then I'll be done. Same thing with playing it, where it's like, yeah, I'm gonna play 2 or 3 games. It'll take me a half hour, and then I'll bounce out of here. Whereas with World of Warcraft, I remember when that game came out in 2003, 2004, something like that. Went over to my next door neighbor's house. He's like, "You got to see this."
Yeah,
because he knew I was a huge Warcraft fan at the time and StarCraft, and he plugs in, he starts playing the game, kind of showing me around for a half hour. I'm watching over his shoulder, and I said, this game looks amazing. This looks awesome.
Yeah.
And I will never, ever, ever touch it because my life will be over. It'll be over.
Yeah.
And so I drew that line in the sand. I've never done the MMORPG kind of thing.
That's impressive. That's a lot of self-control, man.
Yeah.
Because I know I would love it.
Yeah. That's true.
I have a life to live here.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
I look back on it and like in mostly for me, it was like junior high, very early high school, and then maybe later in like my early 20s that I was really, really into MMOs. I look back on it now and I'm like, dude, how, like physically, how did I find 8 hours a day to sit in front of a computer and just play World of Warcraft or
that's what
RuneScape.
Teenagers do.
Yeah,
dude.
that's what your teen years are for.
Yeah,
I know, but I'm just like, dude, I look at it now and like nowadays, like you're
an adult. You're busy.
Not only that, but like just like my attitude has changed as far as like I'm such a social person that I couldn't imagine like being by myself in front of a screen for that long of a period of time.
It's my proud papa moment today is that my 9-year-old is inside playing the Ocarina of Time.
Oh, that's amazing.
I kind of raised him to love Zelda. He didn't really have a lot of choice.
Yeah.
But he loves Zelda now. And anyway, and so to your point, he's in there. He's been I don't let him play forever most days, but you know, it's winter and it's Sunday, and whatever.
It's cold.
so go for it. And so I walked by after he'd been playing for like 2 hours, and I'm like, did you beat the Shadow Temple yet? And he's like, no, not yet. So keep at it. You'll figure it out. And he's like, I know I will. I know I'll figure it out. Where he can just sit there for 2 hours plus and try to figure out the Shadow Temple. So,
man,
I love it. I love that.
That is awesome.
I said this on a previous podcast. Ocarina of Time was literally my very first entry into the fantasy world. It was the first time I had ever seen anything like elves or like anything like that.
Yeah.
And so like very, very fond memories. And I think I beat it when I was young, but I haven't played it as an adult, and I've been trying to find like a GameCube, Ocarina of Time came out for the GameCube and like
N64.
Yep,
and
N64.
Well, yeah, it originally.
Oh, did
came
they
out
do
on,
they did a okay? I didn't know they did one for the GameCube.
But yeah, on the GameCube, there was almost like not remastered like how we think of remastered nowadays, but it was like an up-resed version for the GameCube. And so I've been trying to find that one, or just like find it online in some sort of like.
They should do a big like remaster and just put it on the Switch.
I know.
They did.
I'm like,
it's there.
It's there.
That's what he's playing right now.
That's what you need, then, Spencer.
Wait,
that's what you need. Go buy a Switch.
Ocarina of Time is not on the Switch. Is it?
He is playing it on the Switch probably as we speak.
Yes, dude. Oh, that's the first thing I'm doing when I get done. I didn't realize that either, but it makes sense. It makes perfect sense.
Is this a recent thing?
Maybe a year ago, more.
Yeah, I would say I haven't paid enough attention to my Switch. I bought the Switch to play Breath of the Wild, and I played that solidly for like 300 hours, and then I set my Switch down. And I haven't really gone back since.
Same.
And but that would be sweet though. I'm gonna check that out.
That is so wild because I was literally keeping an eye on that for so long to see if they would bring Ocarina of Time to the Switch. And for the longest time, they were like, no, we don't have any plans to do that. We don't have any plans to do that. And so to hear that it's on the Switch, I'm like, oh my God.
You need to go buy one, dude.
I need to go buy one. And I want to play Breath of the
Wild. You need to play Breath of the Wild, man.
It's pretty great.
It's pretty great.
Pretty great.
Okay, so I did have a question about Horizon and The Last of Us. I vaguely remember on a previous episode of your guys' you were talking about possibly playing The Last of Us 2. Did you end up playing that?
I have not yet played The Last of Us 2, although I did just do a replay of Last of Us 1.
Okay.
Because I saw the trailer come out for the HBO show that's scheduled next year, and I remembered playing it years before, but I was like, I need to refresh on this because it was all I remembered. Well, not all I remembered, but what I remembered was that it was amazing.
Yeah.
So I did a replay of that. I probably wrapped that up 3 or 4 weeks ago. It takes me a lot longer now as I'm older to find the time, to carve out that time. But no, I think The Last of Us is one of the best stories I've ever played in a video game. I don't know if it's the best, but it's for those who I won't spoil it necessarily for those who haven't played it. If you haven't, you should please go play The Last of Us. If you have played it, then you'll know what I'm talking about when I say that it starts like the prologue punches you right in the gut. And it sucks all the wind out of you, and then you have to play this game kind of with that like scar tissue is forming as you play this game. And then you get to the very, very last part of the game, kind of like the epilogue of the game, and they rip the scar tissue and just pour salt in there, and, and then curb stomp you with the ending. Like it was really something.
Man,
just rips your guts out. I love it.
So are you? Because Last of Us 2 is very divisive. I really, really liked it. There were certain aspects of it where I was like, that was a stupid choice. They shouldn't have done that. But for the most part, like coming back to that story, I really enjoyed The Last of Us 2. But a lot of people don't. I'll get there. Are you worried about going into it or?
No, not really. I gave up worrying about my media a while ago. If that makes sense. It's not that I don't find anything good or bad. Obviously, I do.
Sure.
But I used to get really worked up about like Star Wars, for instance. Let's take Star Wars. I was breastfed on Star Wars. I mean, this is day one stuff. And now I've just kind of learned to say, maybe it'll be good, maybe it won't.
Yeah.
I don't have to consume every bit of Star Wars content. It's fine to miss some stuff. My attitude toward media has just changed. And I think that's a natural progression with getting a little older.
Yeah.
So yeah, with The Last of Us 2, am I worried about it? No, not at all. But if I play it and it's subpar, well, then I will have played it and it was subpar, and then I move on with my life. I don't know. I feel like kind of a dick when I say that, but it's like, just whatever.
Well, that's just how it is, though.
Yeah.
I can't even play it if I wanted to. I was just looking on. It's not ported over to PC.
Oh, really? The first one isn't?
I just checked Steam and the Xbox app thing, Microsoft app, and it wasn't on either of those.
Yeah, I think it's a PlayStation exclusive.
Yeah.
Oh.
Which is a bummer, but
it is a bummer for those of you who are too ridiculous to have a PlayStation, Gabe.
That's what I'm saying.
I know, dude. But the
PlayStation is the
PC
best.
Master Race, No, I know. I need to. I was just talking with my girlfriend and family about it. She's like, "What do you want for Christmas?" It's fucking PS5. Like, that's what I want for Christmas.
Pretty great.
Thank you.
Yeah.
$600 out the door.
Right. There we go. I'm tickling it right now.
Yep, right there. And so I'm working on it. I hope that it pans out. But
yeah, I know. I regret not having a PS5 right now because I just got the new Call of Duty and I've seen like gameplay footage and stuff on YouTube. I'm like, oh, it's gorgeous. And then I loaded up on my, my
not so gorgeous.
early PS4, and there's like pop-in and like really like square edges of things. I'm like, oh, it doesn't look bad, but it doesn't look great.
Now the best game I've played in a long time probably would have to go to Horizon Zero Dawn.
Yes.
the original one or Forbidden West?
The first one. Forbidden West was good. Don't get me wrong. Forbidden West is good, but
Forbidden West, but I loved the first one.
It was, and it's a testament to how fun it is to not try to outguess a story.
Yeah.
If you just live through a story, it can be really fun.
Yeah.
I remember talking to somebody about Horizon Zero Dawn, and they're like, "Yeah, but it was so predictable." I'm like, "Right, because you tried to predict it."
Yeah.
Why not just
enjoy yourself?
Yeah. So when I played that one the first time, I just kind of it took me a couple tries to get into it, but once I got into it, you let yourself inhabit the character and go through the story with them, and you're not trying to solve any mysteries before they come due.
Right.
You just enjoy the story. That one, the third act of Horizon Zero Dawn was
incredible,
earth-shattering for me.
Yeah.
Did you guys, when you played it, did you guys get the Shield Weaver armor set?
Oh yeah, I think I did, but
it was like utterly OP. It's almost it's like it's a game ruiner, dude.
Yeah,
because it's like you just couldn't die, and I was like, this is what cheating feels like.
I'm a bit of a completionist, so it tells me there's a thing, I have to get the thing.
Yep.
So what about Forbidden West? Did you not like Forbidden West?
No, I liked it. Yeah, I liked it, but where I how should I put this? I love Horizon Forbidden West, but I worship at the altar of Horizon Zero Dawn.
Yeah.
How's that?
Okay.
That's perfect. That's perfect.
Yeah. That's fantastic. Yeah, I think I don't know, unless there's another game that I'm forgetting about. I think Forbidden West would probably be like my game of the year. I feel like it's a perfect example of, a lot of these sequels try to change a lot. They change a lot of the UI. They change a lot of the way things work. Yeah. And Forbidden West was just like, we're giving you the same thing that you loved. We're just giving you more of it. And they added in some new mechanics. They added in, lots of different like dinosaur robots. And it was everything that you already love, including a good story, and just giving you more.
Yeah.
But I do think that the storyline, I struggle with this because the storyline of Forbidden West was probably not as good as Zero Dawn's.
Can't be. It's impossible.
Yeah.
And I mean that very seriously.
Yeah.
But sorry, go on.
Yeah, for sure. But the ending of Forbidden West had me just going like, oh, like I just want more. I just want even more of it. But yeah, no, you're right. The story for Zero Dawn was so perfect in every way, perfectly paced to where you find out what you need to know at just the right times, and by the time you get to the end, you're just shitting a brick, you know.
I mean, it's Forbidden West ran into the same sequel problem as something like Matrix. What was the second? Matrix Reloaded.
Yeah, I think so.
Where go back and watch Matrix Reloaded and try to you know, if you're somebody who's hated it for years and years and years because you saw it once and you thought it was terrible, try to remove that part of your historical memory and watch it again as its own movie. It's pretty good. You can argue about some of the execution, you know, the conversation with the Merovingian or the creator at the end, you know, whatever he's called, I can't remember. But anyway, but as a sci-fi action movie, it is so far above the average for a sci-fi action movie. It's crazy good. But the first movie was revelatory. You know, and so the same thing goes with Horizon Zero Dawn, where it's like this changes the way we think about storytelling in this genre. And so when I say that it was impossible for Forbidden West to live up, I literally mean you could not do it.
Yeah.
You can't pull that rug out again from the audience. And so I think they did a great job, just like you say, expanding in the world that they had. So
understanding that what they had was gold, and we're just like, we'll just carry this a little bit.
Exactly.
I feel like that's kind of how some people feel about Mistborn. It's like and no spoilers or anything, but it's like you ended Era 1 with like this huge thing, and I feel like some people go into Era 2 and they're kind of like, well, this isn't what I was expecting.
That's what I'm afraid of. That's why I haven't read it yet.
Yeah, and so yeah, Gabe hasn't read it yet, and I've been telling him like take a good size break from Era 1 and go into Era 2 knowing that it's not the same thing, but that you'll still enjoy it in the same way that you would enjoy like Dresden Files or, you know, any like kind of pulpy kind of book.
Yeah, it's a bit like with Mistborn, it would be like I don't know quite how to tie like which stories to tie together, but you read a cowboy story that has echoes of like the Iliad and the Odyssey, right? And you're like, well, this isn't the same. These stakes sure are a lot smaller than they were in the Iliad. And you're like, right, but the Iliad and the Odyssey kind of inform the mythology and the culture that this thing is built on. So even if the stakes are smaller, it's really cool to know what came before. And then to take that mythology into a smaller story where the characters are constantly thinking about and referencing these other events
for sure
that you got to know. I think it's a lot of fun.
No, that's cool. Yeah. I know I need to do it.
It's true. It's true. If only so that you can finally get to the Lost Metal.
Yeah. Well, that's the goal. We're doing that next weekend, I think, right?
Nice. I've heard that the Lost Metal has a crazy Sanderlanche, and no spoilers or anything, but
Sanderlanche, what is that? Oh, like Avalanche,
Sanderlanche. Sanderlanche is what happened at the end of Mistborn.
Oh, okay.
Gotcha. That's a Sanderlanche.
Gotcha.
All right. How are we doing? Do you need to head out, or?
I got another 10 minutes in me.
Okay, cool.
Let's do it. Pick one more little topic.
Yeah. Let's see.
Why don't you ask about House of the Dragon? Do you watch that, Craig?
Oh yeah.
So I haven't finished it yet. I am I don't know if you guys knew this, but I'm a really, really good spouse, and so I have not watched ahead. And so I think I've finished 8 out of 10 episodes of House of the Dragon. I did finish the Rings of Power, so that one's done. But I'm still working on House of the Dragon. But what's his name? Paddy Constantine, who plays like
Valerian
if he doesn't get all the Emmys.
I know.
Like he should get the best Emmy for like supporting actress, you know, or like the best Emmy for adapted screenplay or best soundtrack, or just give him all of them.
Yeah.
He's awesome. He's really really
Nice.
good in this show.
Oh man. And I'm gonna try to do as little spoiling here
You
as
better not spoil nothing for him, dude.
no, not for him, but so the episode you just saw, he was walking down through the
throne room.
yeah, the throne room.
Yeah.
Okay, you just saw that?
Yeah, I have if anybody is not caught up on House of the Dragon, pause for 10 or mute
I haven't
for
seen
10
it.
seconds, okay?
There you go.
Mute for 10 seconds. I am at the point where he has died.
Okay.
And that's it. That's basically where I got. So,
Okay. Yeah.
Now I assume all of the fecal matter will hit the fan.
Yeah.
See how it goes.
Yeah, dude, that was just the most incredible performance. Like him walking to the throne room, and then later at the dinner when he kind of gives his speech, I was like, wow, this is
speaking of getting punched in the gut.
Yeah.
It's when he leaves the dinner.
That
they beat the crap out of the audience.
Yeah. And yeah, man, episode 9 I really liked, but dude, the finale, like I sincerely mean this, it has been years since I've seen a TV show where I started the episode, leaned back in my chair watching the episode, and by the end of it, I was firmly on the very edge of my seat, just going like, oh my God, oh man, it's an incredible finale. You're gonna love it.
I'm definitely looking forward to it. So
what'd you think of Rings of Power?
It's fine.
Yeah.
It's fine.
Yeah.
There were things about it that I really loved. There were things about it that I really loved, a few things about it that I really hated, and a lot about it that I was like, okay, that was a choice, and then moved on.
Yeah.
So it's one of those things. I have a lot to say about it, but I feel like I've said it a lot of times.
Yeah, that's fair.
So I mean, people can go listen to the.
Yeah.
I did an episode with Jack Butler from National Review. He wanted me to come on his show and talk about Rings of Power after it wrapped up, and he kindly let me reuse that audio, so I put that on my own show as well.
Okay.
And so we kind of hashed it out. Ultimately, people need to calm down.
Yeah.
One way or the other. Love it or hate it, you need to calm down.
Yeah, I feel like I'm kind of in a position where like I'm not like a huge Lord of the Rings fans. Like I grew up with the movies, but I never like read the books or anything, which I know needs to be remedied. But I was kind of like, I don't really have a dog in this race. And from the outside looking in, I didn't watch the show, but just from everything I was kind of seeing, I was like, I can tell that even if I'm not a fan of like the Lord of the Rings, like I just don't really want to watch it. But
I disagree with that. I think you should.
Oh, really?
Especially because you're not a big fan of the Lord of the Rings.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Yeah, I think you should.
Okay.
There are things, even as a non-Lord of the Rings fan, it's not all about the lore that they quote unquote screwed up or whatever.
Sure.
There are definitely things to nitpick about the show and the way they told the story and all that stuff. I'm not discounting any of that, but kind of like what I was saying about the Matrix Reloaded, where it's like, compared to X, this isn't as good as I wish it were, or as good as I think it could be. But if you grade it against the vast bulk of kind of epic fantasy on screen, it's like, no, this is awesome. It's so good. So definitely room for it to be a lot better, but no, enjoy it. Have a good time with it.
I think the thing that really oh God, you're gonna hate me for this because I know
that's probably true. I'm
ready. Because I know you can't stand this, but I'm not a huge fan of the Wheel of Time. Like I haven't been in the fandom for like years and years, but I'm a recent fan who loves the series.
Yeah.
And I basically lost my shit with the TV show. I went on like not like obnoxious rants or anything, but I made my disdain for the TV show known.
Yeah, I think when it comes to these kinds of things, and this is true for the Lord of the Rings as well, but the Wheel of Time also, I kind of just view it as headcanon.
Yeah.
And I had just gotten to the point where I don't, and I recognize that in my younger years, this was not the case. I feel like I have kind of, largely thanks to the show and having a lot of conversations with Ryan and Todd and whoever else, I've kind of hopefully matured into the position of understanding that that this is someone else's headcanon. And they had the opportunity and the resources and the backing to take their headcanon and put it on screen. You know, and it's a collaborative effort, so it's a lot of people's headcanon. I get that.
Right.
But you can look at it as this is someone else's headcanon. It doesn't match mine. I prefer mine. You know, I prefer, and okay, and sometimes it is actual canon, you know, whatever.
Right.
I prefer the way the story goes on the page as I read it, or I prefer that this background detail that I kind of filled in on my own, I prefer it in my head.
Yeah.
The way that I constructed it. So, like, you know, Galadriel would be a great example of this, where people watch the Wheel of or not the Wheel of Time, people watch Rings of Power, and they're like, well, this isn't the Galadriel that I know. Right. It's like, well, it's not the Galadriel that you've constructed in your head, and that's fair. And so if you like your version better, fine. But this is somebody else's version. Let them have it, and you know, let it sink or swim without, you know, losing your mind over somebody else not consulting you on the show.
That's a good position to take. I like that.
Yeah, I do too. I think the only thing that is just kind of a bummer in like the whole scheme of things is that, like, so let's say we were to get like a Dresden Files adaptation.
Oh, we did, and it was amazing.
Well, I don't know. But like let's say we were to get like a new like movie or a new series or something. That's likely going to be the only other like adaptation we'll get of that, probably in our lifetime. You know what I mean? And so if it gets like Wheel of Time, like that's more than likely the only Wheel of Time adaptation that we will see in our lifetime. And so it kind of sucks that, like, it's like, okay, yes, if you have the resources and the ability to make a show, like, you're the one making it, you have the right to, you know, change what you want to change. But it sucks for the fandom, because it's like, this is the only one that we're gonna get, and this is not how
yeah, I get what you're saying. A counterpoint.
Sure.
Who gives a crap about the fandom? What I mean is this: what is the purpose of an adaptation like this? If the purpose were to gather the collective headcanon of the existing fandom and put that on screen, everybody fails. Every adaptation is a giant failure. Okay.
Yeah.
What the purpose of an adaptation like this is to deliver the story to people who haven't had a chance for whatever reason to consume that story in its original medium. And so with something like the Wheel of Time, the purpose of it is to then convey it to a new crop of potential fans. It's like the library thing we were talking about earlier. You know, here's this story. Maybe you'll like it, maybe you won't. Give it a shot, whatever. And then if you like it, then you get really invested in that author and you buy all their books and make them more money, right?
Right.
So we could also compare it to Jackson's Lord of the Rings trilogy, where you know, I'm like, I'm exhibit A1 of this, where somebody sees it, they haven't read the books, and it just lights a fire. I need to know more about this story. So I went out and bought the books and consumed them voraciously for years and years and years. And now, you know, I look back on the Jackson trilogy and I'm like, you know, I can point out this and that and the other problem. Oh, they screwed with this lore. Oh man, I wish they hadn't done that with Faramir's character or whatever. Like, I can point out all of those things, but ultimately it was my entry point to that story. Right. And I got to know the actual story. And so it's fine. It's fine. Everybody calm down. Like,
Yeah.
it's
That's
not, if you're a massive Wheel of Time fan, then I hope you enjoy the show, but I'm sorry, the show isn't for you.
Yeah.
The show is for everybody else who doesn't know this story.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So, and I mean, kind of the same thing goes for Rings of Power to a certain extent. Like, this show is not for you. And it's not yours to gatekeep. It's like, it's the guy who was meant to gatekeep it died, maybe a few years ago, arguably. Like, Christopher Tolkien, you could argue, was the gatekeeper of, Middle Earth.
Yeah.
Fine. I don't like the way he gatekept.
Gatekept. Yep.
Gatekept.
There you go.
I don't like the way that he did it, but at least he did it from a legitimate position of authority, where now that's gone and there is no gatekeeper anymore, and you just gotta let it go. Gotta let it go.
Yeah, it's a good point. I like it. All right, before we wrap up, I got two things that I gotta say. One is a question. What I saw your video on the have movies or TV shows been better for nerds?
Oh gosh, yeah. Okay, sure.
And you mentioned a Harry Potter parody you wrote.
No.
I have to know what this is.
No, I read a Harry
okay.
Potter parody. I was 19 years old, so this would have been Christmas 2005. And I was living in France at the time. And I was this American missionary in France, and so I had no family or friends anywhere. And this English family invited me and my missionary companion over for Christmas dinner. So we go over to their house for Christmas dinner, and it was lovely. It's but it was also like, I need something to do. I don't know any of these people,
for sure.
and so, like, they were delightful, but it was getting a little boring after I'd been there for a few hours. And so I started looking at the shelves, and I spotted this thing called Barry Trotter. And that's all. I honestly don't remember all that much about it, other than I read 100 pages of it and laughed my head off for a few hours.
Okay.
And,
That's
and
awesome.
I remember the name Barry Trotter. So
Nice.
Okay.
that's all that was. There's really not a ton more to it.
It'll be the next thing in
Okay.
my Google search.
Yeah, for sure. And then the last thing is, you also mentioned that you haven't watched Dark.
True.
And
that is true.
I haven't either.
You absolutely need to watch Dark. And it is, I think it'll be good for you, because it is the kind of thing where, with the kind of books you read and your kind of level of, analysis on some of these books, I think you'd be a perfect viewer of Dark. It is very complex. It is one of those things where you have to be like, okay, I am dedicating like this time to watch it consistently, because it's like, if you don't, it's really easy to forget things that are kind of interweaving.
It's not background noise.
Right. Yeah. But like, it's definitely one of those things where you have to like sit down and focus on it. But it is so rewarding. It is like, it's easily like the most rewarding show I've ever watched. Like, by the time you get to the end and you understand like how everything has been working, it is just like, it's wild.
Well, yeah, it's definitely on my radar. So with that, I will for sure move it up on my list.
There you go.
Cool. All right, man. Well, thank you so much for joining us. This has been awesome. I've been really looking forward to having you on. And, like I said, I've been watching your guys' show for so long. It's just awesome to be able to kind of sit down and chat with you for a while.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. Yeah, it's a lot of fun. I love having random, bizarre conversations like this. It's
absolutely.
a lot of fun.
No, it was cool.
Awesome. All right, guys, we are going to wrap it up there. Thank you so much for joining us. If you haven't already, go listen to the Legendarium Podcast on Spotify and YouTube and wherever else they are. They have an absolutely massive back catalog of episodes. I would bet that most of your favorite books have a dedicated episode over there. So I'll have all their stuff linked below in the description. If you like our podcast, you're absolutely going to love theirs. If you're new here, be sure to hit our like and subscribe buttons so you can keep up with more of this fascinating content. As I mentioned, we also have Discord and Twitter, which will be linked below as well. Upcoming episodes include our Mistborn Era 2 discussion next week, focusing on the Lost Metal. We mentioned that earlier. And then the week after that will be another Creators Corner episode with Mike from Mike's Book Reviews. And then we're getting back to the Dresden Files, hopefully. So we'll be maybe doing a couple of those episodes leading up to our end of the year top 5 favorite books we've read in 2022. Lots to look forward to. We hope to see you there. And until next time, I'll be monitoring Gabe's progress with his plastic spoon in the basement. Goodbye.
Spoon out.